What's going on, everybody? Today, it's broke, and we fix it. Roll intro. Alright, so let's get started. Fortunately, an alternator replacement on a Fox body Mustang is pretty simple. It's 2 bolts and a couple of plugs. So let's get started. New belt. New alternator. Now, as much as I wish that I was doing a 3G conversion, which is, you know, a higher output alternator and changing the wiring up and things like that, just wasn't in the budget today. I drive this car out and back to work, things like that, so I didn't really have the time to just say, just let it sit. I needed to fix it pretty quick, so we've just got a remanufactured lifetime warranty alternator, just a standard 75 amp alternator, and a new belt, in hopes that it's just gonna make the car drivable so I can get around and do the things that I need to do. I need to get better about not clapping so much when I'm talking. Anyway, I'm sure you guys have noticed that in other videos. I'll work on it. So I'm gonna go ahead and undo the battery and get started. So, to undo the battery, you just go ahead and pop the negative cable off, as there's really no need to undo the whole thing. As long as you break the circuit, you're not going to have any issues. So now we've got that off, let's take a look at the alternator and see what size bolts we've got there. Alright, so first things first, you've got to take the tension off of the tensioner so that you can get the belt off before you start loosening the alternator. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, and I'm just going to use an adjustable wrench, I think, at least. To the right size. I don't round that off. Yep, and there she goes. Slip the belt off the alternator. Now, I've already checked my bolt sizes for this thing. That's 14 millimeters on both nuts or bolts that I've got to get off of here. So I'm gonna go ahead and unplug my plugs. I've got 2 plugs here. Use a flat-bladed screwdriver to lightly pry without breaking on both of these. Alright, so the alternator is completely unplugged, and now it's just taking out the bolts. I think this video is going to be shorter than I originally thought. Sorry. That's good and tight. Oh, there we go. There's the top bolt loose. Perks of a big aftermarket radiator bolt tray. Now, time to do the bottom one. That is loose. So, wiggle this as needed and pull that bolt out and remove the alternator. There she is, simple enough. Alright, so I've got the new alternator here, and don't judge me for the blue prop rod. Junkyard find. Anyway, I'm gonna go ahead and drop this in here and get started installing it. Now your big wide section goes right in there where the bolt runs through. Easiest just to go ahead and set that in there and line that up, and then lay this over after you get your plug connected, of course, so it's a little bit easier. Now this one's got the plugs located in a different spot, and it's okay, there's no interference or anything, so I'm not too worried about it. But just always take a moment to inspect your plugs and make sure nothing's burned up or corroded or chewed up. and drop them on. That's first bolt's in. I'm gonna go ahead and put the second bolt in. And that's started. Alright, got that finger tight. Let me put the nut back on the back of this bolt. And tighten them up. Now, they don't need to be Superman tight or anything, just a little beyond snug. You don't want any movement of the... I'm gonna have to unplug that plug just to reach that nut. Alright, anyway, they don't need to be Superman tight. No need to try to strip out threads and aluminum to attach these stupid things. Just get them on there and get them good and tight. Alright, now onto the belt replacement. And this is actually relatively simple as well. If you paid attention to the routing of your belt when you loosen it up, which goes around the crank pulley, up over the water pump, down around the smog pump, up over the alternator, down underneath the tensioner, around the AC compressor, around the power steering pump, and back around the crank pulley. This is factory length. Even though I don't have a smog pump, that's a smog pump eliminator kit. So I still use the 90.5 to 91 inch belt, depending on car. So now that I've got this laid out, I got my new belt here. I'm gonna go ahead and put this together. Take the old belts off. This belt's cracked up and dry in places and stuff like that. So I'm just gonna get it out of here and install the new one. Alright, down around the crank pulley. Down around the crank pulley. You go over here. Over the power steering, you go here, you go around the water pump, down around the smog pump eliminator, up over, that, alright, we may have discovered a wee problem. That does not reach at all. Huh. I may have to put the old belt back on there and take this one back, because this is not a long enough belt at all. Even though that's what's listed as factory. That's what happens when you mess with modified cars. I'm glad you guys could see this. Yeah, because it's not an abnormal situation to run into that. So I'm going to take this new belt back off and put the old one on just to get the car up and going, so we can figure out what the heck. So, down around the crank pulley, up over the water pump, right off there. Crank pulley, one's up there, one's up there. Small pump eliminator. And see how much easier that went up over the alternator like that? Yeah, so there's a wee bit of an issue. Grab my wrench that I'm using for the tensioner. Of course. And yep, fat guys make noises when they exude effort, so sorry. Alright. There goes a wrench to the ground. Anyway, let me confirm that everything's where it's supposed to be, not halfway on a pulley or anything stupid like that. Alright, I'm gonna put on the air filter, reconnect the battery, and start it up and hope that it's charging. Be back with you guys in a second. Alright guys, so that pretty much wraps it up. I literally spent more time moving the camera and setting up shots than I did installing the alternator. All you really need, I always wear gloves, as you saw in the, there goes that stupid clap again. Anyway, I always wear gloves. Being as I'm a guitar player, I try not to tear my hands up. Not required, but you know, you'd be cleaner in the end. I needed a 3/8 inch drive socket wrench and a 14mm socket for the 2 bolts on the alternator. I used an adjustable wrench to grab the bolt on the tensioner pulley, so you could pull that up to put the belt on, and a 1/2 inch for the battery. I used a flat blade to undo the clamp for the air filter. Really just minimal hand tools. I did it in under 30 minutes. Not a big deal. I wish I had filmed the diagnosis process, but I'll be honest with you. I've dealt with so many of these Fox body Mustangs, as well as a mechanic by trade formerly before I got into other things as a career path. You just kind of know the symptoms, and in this particular case, the voltage gauge on the car, you'd fire the car up, the battery light come on, and the gauge would just barely move up above like 8 or 9 volts. So typically that's like the internal voltage regulator, or the brushes have gone bad in that alternator. Very simple to diagnose if it's not charging as much as it's supposed to. Typically with an alternator that encapsulates everything into the package. It's not like an old car that has a separate like firewall mounted voltage regulator. All that's built into that alternator. It's pretty straightforward to diagnose what's going on, so not a big deal. If you guys dig the video, like, comment, subscribe. I appreciate you guys coming and hanging out. I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace.